So cute. I like to find the most vibrant looking flowers, and depending on the size of the bowl, I usually only need about, of this, if I had a small bowl like this, I need about 10 flowers, but I typically look for just kind of the most, like the ones that look like they're the most full of life. And there's this one in the middle here is about to open. So I might look for, on another one, I notice that this is toward the center. So on another one I might look toward the center of this cluster. And yeah, there's some really vibrant ones right next to these that have just opened. Very bright in color, look very full of water, and like reaching out like the rest of the plant is. And the personality of this plant, to me, is got a lot of joy to it, kind of like a showy joy. It feels very light and airy, the way that the branches are kind of setting themselves above the different parts of the plant, like where the new growth is. It's not super dense, like it allows a lot of air between it. So the feeling of the plant to me is very light. Light in color, light in stem structure. There's a very uplifting sort of feeling to it to me. Very sweet. Like, what is your energetic medicine? And for this one, I get pretty quickly, it's very much about joy. And the word joy, just like every time I ask, that's the word that comes up first. So whether it helps us connect to joy more easily, or just accept joy, or just have less resistance to joy, maybe, I don't know. But that's the type of thing that to really dive into, what do you mean by joy? To get those deeper questions is usually when I spend a lot more time. So typically, the first thing that I do when I make a flower essence is connect with the plant. So like you saw earlier, I'll spend some time with it and talk to it a bit, and actually ask it if it's all right that I make a medicine from it. And I assume this plant will be okay with it because it's an awfully happy seeming plant, but just for good measure, because I think it's always important to ask things and people for permission before you just take from them. So I'll just ask, is it okay if I make a flower essence from you? And the only thing that's coming to mind is yes, yes, yes. So sometimes I just get one, so I think it's kind of excited, maybe. So then, after that's done, and you feel connected with the plant and have spent some time with it, the next thing you want to do is prepare the things to make the flower essence and make sure that the bowl is clean, the scissors are clean, and the tweezers are clean. And a little bit of brandy is going to make sure it's clean enough. It's 40% alcohol. And something is preserved when it's over 20% alcohol. So the 40% alcohol will clean it well. And the reason that I'm doing this is just to make sure there's no bacteria that's introduced into the bottle that's going to be preserved, because typically a flower essence mother can last for about 5 years. But cleaning everything just ensures that you'll be able to use it for a long time. All right. And then, so the next step is we want to put in some spring water into this bowl, because this is where the infusion will take place. It's best to get spring water specifically, or whatever water that you can find that's the most natural water. Water is a very big part of why flower essences work in the first place. There's been a lot of studies about how water holds memory and actually can house a vibrational pattern. And when you put an intention into water, it changes its structure. So that goes for both the plant energy and the energy that you have and the intention that you have when you're making the medicine at all. So when you pour the water, I usually just like to say, may this water be a part of making this medicine, healing, and bring positive things to anyone that consumes it and to the plant that is part of the process. There's actually been some studies done on water where they look at the crystallization of like a snowflake that water creates after it's been spoken to. And words like I love you make beautiful crystals, and words like I hate you or like do this or just sort of negative intention words change the structure of water to something that it doesn't even crystallize, but it will kind of like morph and look sick to the best of like my explanation of when I'm looking at that, because there's a book called The Hidden Messages in Water, and it's got pictures of what that looks like. So the water and the way that it holds that vibration of the plant is just one of the most important parts of it, because there's water in all of us and there's water in the plant. And so when we speak to it and we speak to the medicine, we speak to the plant, we speak to our own bodies, it actually changes the water itself. So yeah, I like to tell the plant that I love it and thank you. And again, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a really vibrant flower, and then you don't want your own energy to touch the flower. So you want to take the tweezers and hold the flower at the base gently, and then take the scissors. Are you ready? Okay. And then snip the flower and place it into the water. And with this bowl of water, I think that we could take about 10 flowers and have enough. One of the things that I love about taking or making flower essences also is how sustainable it is to make about 100 bottles this size or more. This is all we'll need, 10 flowers. And because we're capturing the energy of the plant, to me, it's a much more special connection than just taking the plant and drying it or cutting it up. It's like giving it a bath or something. Taking it to the spa. When you have a strong enough intention, when you're making a plant medicine for it to be healing, I think that it can still carry a lot of healing, even if it's not in the best environment. Now from plant to plant, every plant is going to have a little bit of a different medicine, sometimes a vastly different medicine. Kind of the same way that, like, if you were to have a conversation with one friend versus a conversation with another friend, like, some things you just wouldn't talk about with, like, one friend, because you're like, I know if I talk about this with them, like, they're not going to help me. It's kind of like that with plants. So, for instance, like, the personality of this plant feels very light and joyous, and, like, you know, I might come to it for, like, hey, I'm feeling, like, pretty down today. I'm going to go visit this plant. Rather than, like, if I'm feeling, like, really good and I'm looking for something else, like, just I don't feel like, I might not feel drawn to using this plant versus another plant that, like, might bring me, like, humility if I didn't need, like, more, like, upward energy. It's, like, going to bring me further up in joy. Like, if I'm, like, so high up and I'm like, okay, I think I need some more balance, like, I would go to another plant. But yeah, between each flower, though, sometimes there's a little bit of a different energy, depending on, like, how far along the flower is. If it's close to going to seed, if it's really brand new, it's going to have, like, a little bit more, like, oomph to it. So really just kind of both, like, looking at it and really feeling intuitively, just kind of getting in touch with, like, your gut and kind of like, how does this feel? How does this flower feel? Does it feel vibrant? You know, that's really, like, an important part of it. For instance, like, if you were to put a bunch of these flowers in that are basically already detached from the plant, like, this is not going to carry as much bioelectrical energy, or it's not going to be as strong of an energetic pattern, because they're on their way out. So with the flower essence, it's actually really important to harvest the flowers when they're at their fullest, and also at full sun. And that's actually one of the most important parts of the process, because you have to have the sun in order to create that bioelectrical infusion into the water. So when the sun hits the flowers, what happens is it creates, it's difficult to explain because there's not a whole lot of, like, science around it. There's not a lot of studies. However, we do know that flowers carry, like, a bioelectrical pattern, and we also know that they have every flower has a different frequency. And when the sun hits them, it actually imprints that frequency and the bioelectrical pattern into the water. And as we talked about earlier, like the water will actually remember that, as well as the healing intention, which is what creates the medicine. The brandy is just for preserving it. But yeah, so what you want to do after you're at this point, you've got all the flowers, you set the healing intention, you've made friends with the plant. Now what you want to do is just allow it to sit under the sunlight for about 2 hours, 2 to 4 hours. 2 hours is very minimum. Sometimes I'll leave them depending on like the intuitive feeling of like how long does this flower essence need to be under the sun for it to benefit me. I might get like 6 hours. So, but today we'll leave it for 2 to 4 and kind of feel it out and harvest in a short bit. All right, so we've let it sit for 4 hours, which is ideal. And it's full sun, which is perfect. And so now we're ready to take the flowers out of the water and actually make the mother essence. And the mother essence is something that can be diluted and shared. And what we're going to do after we take the flowers out is I always like to tell them thank you and then just give them back to the plant. And again, during the whole process, you want to be thinking about being careful not to touch the water with your own skin as much as possible. I mean, if it happens once, it's not going to ruin the whole batch. But introducing your own energy to it will change it. And to get the purest flower essence, you want just the energy of the flower. Sometimes there are little bugs that come along with it, but I think that just gives it character. Because they're on there all the time anyway. And sometimes when you're doing this and you get the water on your fingers, you can feel that energetic vibration a little bit. It's going to feel a little bit different for everyone. Some people it'll feel like warmth. Some people it'll feel like a little buzz. Some people it'll feel like nothing at all, but you might feel a change in your emotions. You might have a thought come to mind. This whole process of this kind of medicine is all very intuitive. So the way to get the most out of it is to allow whatever your body might communicate to you, to allow the medicine to come through however it might. For a lot of people, that's a poem. So it's very similar to communicating with a plant itself. And actually, essentially what a flower essence does is it allows us to communicate with a plant if we don't necessarily know how to do it one-on-one, because it's going to carry the same energy that the plant actually has. So it's a bit of a bridge between plants and humans, because it's every time that you take this medicine, the energy in this water is going to be the same energy that you get from spending time with the plant. So you can actually carry the energy that you feel, carry the sort of like conversation and the relationship with you and the medicine that comes with that. And every time that it touches your skin, that vibrational pattern of the water actually will carry in the water in your body and change the frequency. And the more often that you do that, the more regularly that your body sees that pattern, the more it will actually begin to remember it. And the therapy kind of comes in that form. So when you use it often, you only need 1 drop. But when you use it often, your body will begin to remember that pattern of balance, because plants are often a lot more balanced with nature and just living more peacefully. So it kind of just happens naturally over time that your body begins to take on that similar pattern to that one particular plant. Okay, so now what we're going to do is pour this water into a jar or a container of your liking. Ooh, we only need about that much today. I'm going to go ahead and give the rest back to the plant. I'm going to try it out and say thank you. And now, so all we're doing, so the water is holding the energy of the plant now. And what the brandy does is it simply preserves the water, because water naturally will have bacteria grow over time, just because water creates life, and life wants to live, and life will eventually grow in water if it's not preserved. So the brandy just keeps things from growing in it. And this is what's been used traditionally since the flower essences started being made in a more standardized way. And I'm just doing this approximately today, but you want about half the amount, or a 1-to-1 ratio, so 1 part of water and 1 part of brandy, so it'll be about half brandy, half water. And what that does is it makes the liquid 20% alcohol. And that 20% is what we want to make sure that it's the most water that we can get, so it's not diluted by brandy. The energy is as its maximum ability, because it's in mostly water, while also keeping it preserved, which is that 20% alcohol amount. And you can use other alcohols if you only have vodka or Everclear. You can use those too. But if you were to use Everclear, because it's 95% alcohol, you'd only need if you had this much water, you'd only need a quarter amount of Everclear. So it would be a 4-to-1 water to Everclear. And that would preserve it, because it'd be about 25% water, 20 to 25%. Okay, so this is called the Mother Essence. And with this, you can make a lot of flower essences. What we're going to do today is I'm going to show you how to make a stock essence, which is something that you can carry around with you in your purse, in your pocket, wherever you want to have it. And the best way to preserve this will last, depending on how you store it, I would say safely 2 to 3 years. I've had some last past 5 years, but they're always bottled in something like this, which is tightly, no air really. So you want to cap this, and when you're ready to make a stock essence, and you can take this, but it's actually going to be stronger when it's diluted. It's been observed that with flower essences, when this mother is dropped into space where the pattern is it's allowed to fill another space, that it actually becomes stronger and more has more healing potential. So all we need to make a stock essence
And a 30 milliliter bottle is going to be 2 drops. And sometimes you might get the feeling like, oh, I want to do more than 2 drops, and like just go for it, because it's very intuitive. And if you're making it for yourself, you know, you want to put 5 or 10 in there, go for it. And today I guess I didn't mean to do that, but I was not thinking and it just all went in there, and maybe that's what was supposed to happen. So we'll go with it. Sometimes when the body takes over and the mind is completely open, things go exactly the way that they're supposed to. A good old, as Bob Ross might say, a happy accident, maybe. And then there's the last step is just sticking a label on it. There's been a lot of times that I've looked for one particular flower essence and not had a label for it and not been able to use it because I didn't know what it was. And now we do. So, oh, and yeah, so this is a flower essence. And you take it. You can take it internally. You can take it topically. This is the wrong name for the plant, so that's not, it's not Datura. This plant is called, I looked it up earlier and I don't remember. But the way that you use a flower essence is you take the dropper, and I usually like to put it in my hand and then place the drops like so, wherever I feel guided to. Usually once I put it on my hand, you only need a couple drops. And then once I put it on my hand, I usually feel guided to put it somewhere. And for some reason, my side came to mind. So I'm just gonna place it there. And with this one, it's interesting, very immediately my heartbeat became stronger. But in a way that feels uplifting. So flower essence are very interesting in the way that the medicine of them works. Oftentimes they're very subtle. Sometimes they'll be very noticeable. Depends on how receptive you are to the medicine. It depends on how well your personality works with another plant's personality, or how much you actually may need that vibration. But I've had flower essences like make me start laughing without any reason, to the degree that it freaked me out so much. I don't think I used flower essences for 6 months after that happened. I was like, I don't know how that worked. I don't really know about this energy stuff. I don't know if I believe in it, but I just started laughing and it freaked me out, so I think I'm gonna take a break. But yeah, it can be anything from something as clear as day like that to, you know, you use it 5 times a day and you start noticing like, wow, I act different like 5 weeks later. So that's, in brief, how to make a flower essence.